The worst day of my career started with free donuts in the break room. That should have tipped me off. In our office, free food meant one of two things. Someone was quitting, or someone was about to get screwed. Turned out, both were true. I just didn't know I was the one getting blindsided. My name's Scott Miller. I'm 41, married, and until 3 months ago, I was the regional sales director for a medical supply company based out of St. Louis. I'd worked there for nearly a decade. I was good at my job. Numbers solid, team respected me. Even corporate kept their hands off as long as I delivered, which I always did, except for Q2, and that's where the story starts unraveling. Sales dropped in April, not by much, but enough to raise eyebrows. I wasn't worried. It happens. Seasonal dips, new competitors, hospital budgets tightening. Nothing unusual. My team was still performing. I was already making adjustments, and I'd sent a full strategy update to my VP. But then came the audit, an email from HR. Routine check. They said they were verifying some regional reports, travel reimbursements, client incentives, stuff like that. Standard. I'd gone through 2 audits in the past and passed both without a hitch. This time was different. They flagged 5 travel reports with irregularities. 1 client dinner listed twice. Mileage logs that didn't line up. A $900 hotel stay that I knew I didn't book in a city I hadn't even visited that month. I double-checked everything, then triple-checked. At first, I thought it was an error, maybe a glitch in the expense software, or a rogue team member accidentally tagging their charges under my name, until I saw the email, forwarded from an anonymous inbox to my personal Gmail. No subject line, just a screenshot. It was an internal memo between 2 coworkers in accounting, one of whom I didn't know well, the other I'd mentored years ago. The message read, "Scott doesn't know it yet, but he's about to take the fall. All we have to do is make sure the receipts stick." My stomach dropped. At first, I thought it was a joke, but the more I looked at it, the more I realized it wasn't. Someone, maybe more than one person, had gone to the trouble of falsifying records and planting evidence tied to my name. I was being set up, and I had no idea why. The next day, my company laptop was locked out remotely. I was told to report to HR at noon. I walked in wearing the same navy suit I wore to my promotion interview 5 years earlier. It didn't help. They handed me a folder with 36 pages of documentation, accusations of misappropriation of company funds, expense fraud, potential ethics violations, legalese that hit like a punch to the ribs. I tried to explain, told them to check GPS logs, phone records, anything that would prove I wasn't in half the places those receipts claimed. They said they'd look into it, but the tone was final. This wasn't an investigation, it was a formality. By 5 p.m., I was out of a job. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. I couldn't walk into my house, look my wife in the eye, and explain that I'd lost a 6-figure job in a single day, with no severance, no warning, and a permanent stain on my reputation. So I drove. No destination, just a highway and some bad music on low volume. I ended up at a small apartment complex on the south side of town. Parked. Texted one word, "You home?" 10 seconds later, "Yes." Doors unlocked. Her name is Rachel. She's 29, works in marketing for a competitor. We'd met at a regional conference 18 months ago. 1 drink turned into 4. 4 turned into a mistake. And then it stopped being a mistake and started being something else. We met once a month, never more, always careful. It wasn't love, at least I didn't think it was, but it was real in a way I didn't expect. I walked in. She was barefoot, no makeup, wearing a threadbare t-shirt that hit different in the quiet of a low-lit apartment. I told her everything. When I finished, she sat there, silent. Then she said, "I think I know who did this." And that's when everything really started falling apart. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, heart hammering. "You what?" Rachel didn't blink. "I think I know who set you up, or at least who's behind it." She stood up, walked over to the kitchen, and poured herself a glass of water, like we weren't talking about the collapse of my career. "I didn't want to get involved," she said, not looking at me. "But when I saw your name in that internal email last week, I knew something was off." I stared at her. "Wait, you saw this coming?" She nodded. "Not all of it, but parts." She handed me her phone. There was an email open time-stamped 10 days earlier. It was a forwarded message chain from someone at my company, someone in the accounting department. The subject line was Internal Movement Q2 Adjustments. Rachel scrolled to one specific line and highlighted it for me. We've got the paper trail pointing to Miller. Final receipts logged yesterday. If he fights it, we push the ethics angle. I read it twice and something hot rose in my throat. This came from someone at my office, I asked. Yeah, a guy named Brennan. I think he was trying to impress someone at my company. Long story, but he mentioned your name like it was just office gossip. He didn't know we know each other. My mouth was dry. Brennan was the same guy I'd gone to bat for last year when he almost got let go after a massive spreadsheet error that nearly cost us a client. I'd told my VP he just needed training, that he had potential. I saved his job. And now he was throwing me under the bus. I stood up and paced the room. So why didn't you say anything earlier? I asked. Rachel paused. Because I didn't want to make it worse. And I didn't know how much of this was real. You never told me what was going on at work, Scott. I didn't even know you were under review. I bit my tongue. She was right. We didn't talk about real life, not the messy parts. That was part of the deal. We stayed on the surface, safe and clean. Until now. Now she was the only person who could prove I'd been set up. And I wasn't sure if that made me lucky or completely screwed. Rachel sat down again and looked me in the eye. I can help you, she said. I know people at your office. I know who's talking. If you want to fight this, we have to move fast. We? She raised an eyebrow. You think I'm just going to watch you get steamrolled while I sit here doing nothing? I didn't sign up for this either. But here we are. There was something in her voice I hadn't heard before, something sharper than the casual tone we usually had. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was anger, or maybe she just realized, like I did, that this thing between us had just stopped being casual the moment she became the only person willing to go to war with me. We spent the next 2 hours building a list. Names, timelines, any emails she could track down. She messaged a contact at our shared vendor, someone who worked with both companies and might have seen transactions coming through. Then, just before midnight, she said something that made my stomach drop. There's one more thing. I looked up from my notes. Rachel, what is it? She hesitated, then pulled out her laptop and opened a secure folder. Inside were 3 voice memos. Brennan, she said quietly. He talks too much when he drinks. She hit play. The recording was rough, background noise heavy, but the voice was unmistakable. Miller won't see it coming. Honestly, screw that guy. He's been coasting for years while the rest of us clean up his mess. You want to climb? You climb over whoever's in the way. Simple. I sat there in silence as the rest played out. In 90 seconds, it confirmed what I'd suspected. I was never supposed to see it coming. Brennan had teamed up with someone in compliance, someone I didn't even know personally, and together they'd built a paper trail with just enough plausible deniability to bury me without a trace. And I would have stayed buried if Rachel hadn't kept the receipts. I looked over at her. She looked tired, but unshaken. You could have deleted all of that, I said. Spared yourself the mess. Yeah, she replied, but I didn't. There it was again, that edge in her voice. I didn't know if she did it for me or for herself. Maybe both. But either way, I owed her. Now we had proof. But we also had a new problem. If we used it, the whole thing, everything, would come out. The affair, the recordings, her involvement. The truth would clear my name, but it would also nuke both of our lives in the process. I looked at the folder again, then at Rachel. Are you sure you're ready for this? She took a deep breath. Scott, you've already lost everything. The only question left is whether you're going to take it back. On Monday morning, I shaved, put on a clean shirt, and walked into the HR office like a man with nothing left to lose. It had been 6 days since they'd fired me. 6 days of silence. 6 days of rumors probably spreading through the office like wildfire while I sat in the wreckage of a 10-year career, wondering how fast it had all slipped through my fingers. But this time, I wasn't walking in empty-handed. I requested a meeting with the VP of Operations and the head of HR. No lawyers, no press, not yet. I told them I had new information regarding the audit and the irregularities that got me terminated. They were skeptical, but agreed to meet. I still had enough of a reputation left to earn the courtesy of a conversation. We sat down in a small glass-walled conference room around 9:45 a.m. The air was thick with corporate tension, those awkward silences where everyone's just waiting to see who swings first. So I did. I have reason to believe I was deliberately set up by an employee in accounting. possibly with help from someone in compliance. HR leaned forward, furrowed brow. And what makes you say that? I pulled a flash drive from my pocket and placed it gently on the table. This has a voice recording of Brennan from accounting, boasting about falsifying documentation to push me out. Dead silence. I continued. It also includes email metadata forwarded to a third party outside this company, confirming a coordinated effort to pin fabricated expense reports on me. I didn't misfile those reimbursements. I never submitted those hotel stays. Someone else did. The VP leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. This is a serious accusation, Scott. No, I said. This is a serious accusation. I tapped the flash drive. Everything I'm saying can be verified. You'll find time-stamped metadata on the emails, discrepancies in the reimbursement system access logs, and voice confirmation of intent to commit internal fraud. I've already backed it up in 3 places. I'm here as a courtesy. Another long pause. Then HR asked, "Who is the third party that received these emails?" Here it was. The moment where everything could unravel. I looked her straight in the eye. I'd rather not say, but I can assure you it was someone in a legal position to collect and forward the evidence. They're prepared to speak on the record if necessary. Rachel had offered to be the whistleblower, to let her name go on file if it came down to it. I told her I'd try to keep her out of it. For now, I could buy her time. They asked me to leave the drive for review and promised to follow up within 48 hours. No apologies, no promises, just polite corporate smiles that meant we weren't ready for this. I walked out of the building feeling not victorious, but stable. For the first time in weeks, the ground wasn't shifting under my feet. That night, Rachel came over. She brought dinner, tacos from a spot she said reminded her of her college days, and 2 cheap beers in a brown paper bag. We sat on the floor of my half-empty apartment, eating off paper plates like teenagers, both knowing everything could still explode. I lied to HR, I admitted. I didn't say it was you. She smiled faintly. I know. I'll protect you if I can. She shook her head. You don't owe me that. But I did. I owed her more than that, because the longer this dragged on, the more I realized something terrifying. The person who knew the worst parts of me, the cheating, the mistakes, the cracks I'd hidden from everyone, was the only person who actually showed up when everything else burned down. Rachel didn't run. She didn't ghost me. She went to war for me when my own company and even my own wife hadn't batted an eye. Speaking of my wife, I hadn't told her about the firing, about the setup, about Rachel. Not yet. She just thought I was on a break from work, dealing with a stressful quarter. I told myself I was protecting her, but I knew that wasn't true. I was avoiding the moment I'd have to look her in the eye and admit I'd wrecked everything. Not just at work, at home too. That conversation was coming, and I was starting to think I owed her the truth. Just like I owed Rachel the truth about where this thing between us was heading. 3 days later, the company called me back in. I walked into the same glass conference room, but this time the tone had changed. The VP's face was tight. HR looked tense. Legal was in the room now, too. We reviewed the drive, the VP said. The material on it was substantial. He tapped his pen against the table. We've placed Brennan and another employee on leave pending investigation. We'll also be revisiting your termination immediately. For now, we'd like to offer you a settlement and a letter of exoneration. It was corporate code for "you were right, and we need you to go away quietly." I kept a straight face, even as my chest tightened. Not interested in a settlement, I said. I want my name cleared publicly. I want my employment record corrected, and I want the option to pursue legal action if I choose to. Otherwise, this story goes to the press. And trust me, they'll eat it up. HR's expression cracked just enough to show fear. I had them. But even as I walked out that day, vindicated and dangerous, I knew this wasn't over, because winning professionally meant facing something much messier at home. And as much as I wanted to avoid it, I couldn't outrun that part forever. I pulled into the driveway around 7:15 that night. Porch light was already on. The same potted plants Emily kept threatening to replace still sat untouched by the steps. From the outside, everything looked exactly the same. Inside, nothing was. She was on the couch, grading papers with the TV on in the background. She glanced up when she heard the door and smiled like nothing was off. "Hey," she said, "dinner's in the fridge if you're hungry." I stood there for a second too long, just looking at her, taking in the house I hadn't really seen in weeks. It was like being in someone else's life. I said, setting my keys down. We need to talk. Her face fell immediately, the smile gone. She put the papers aside without asking questions. She knew that tone. I sat down across from her and told her everything. Not just the setup at work, not just the betrayal by people I'd trusted, but Rachel, the affair, how long it had been going on, why I'd let it start in the first place. I told her the truth, finally, without excuses, without spin. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just sat there, breathing hard through her nose, gripping the arm of the couch like she was holding herself together. "How long?" she asked, voice flat. 18 months. She nodded slowly, and I guess it wasn't just meaningless. I didn't answer right away. "No," I said. It wasn't. Silence. The kind of silence that only comes when everything else has already been said. Then, "So, what now?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I couldn't keep lying. You deserved the truth." She looked away. Funny how people only think that after the damage is done. I took that hit without flinching. I deserved worse. Eventually, she stood up and said she needed space, some time to think. Said she'd stay at her sister's for a few days. No promises, no decisions, just distance. She packed a bag in silence. I didn't stop her. That night, I sat in the empty house and realized just how many parts of my life had been built on convenience, silence, and half-truths. I'd lost the job, might still lose the marriage, and as for Rachel, I didn't even know what that was anymore. So I called her, told her everything about the meeting, the reversal, the offer, and the fallout at home. There was a pause. Then she said something I hadn't expected. "You need to focus on fixing what matters," she said. "Don't worry about me." "I'm not trying to walk away," I said. "I know," she said, "but maybe you should." It was quiet for a long time. "Are you okay?" I asked. Rachel gave a small, almost sad laugh. "You're the one who just lost his job and maybe his marriage, and you're asking if I'm okay." "I mean it," she sighed. "I don't know, Scott. I'm tired. Tired of being the secret, the scapegoat, the one you call when everything else falls apart." I didn't know what to say, because again, she was right. "I'll always be grateful for what you did," I said quietly. "Just don't waste it," she replied. "Make it count for something." We didn't say goodbye, but it felt like one. 2 months later, I had my name cleared, in writing, by the company. They issued an internal memo stating I had no involvement in the expense report fraud and that the real perpetrators had been terminated. I didn't take the job back. I didn't want it. I took time off, rebuilt my resume, started freelance consulting while figuring out the next move. Turns out you can survive a career collapse as long as you still have your reputation. As for Emily, we're not divorced. Not yet. She came back home after 2 weeks. We're in counseling now. It's hard. Some days feel like progress. Some days we barely speak. I don't know where we're heading, but we're not done. And that's something. Rachel and I haven't spoken since that last call. Sometimes I want to text her just to say thanks, or sorry, or both. But I don't, because when someone saves you from drowning, you don't ask them to stay in the water with you. You let them go. I used to think affairs were just about sex, but the truth is, they're about gaps. The kind that form slowly in your life when you stop looking, when you coast too long, when you mistake comfort for connection. And if you're not careful, someone will come along who sees those gaps and fills them, even if it costs you everything else. I lost my job, nearly lost my marriage, and ruined a relationship that never should have started in the first place. But I came out of it clearer. Not cleaner, not healed, just honest. And sometimes that's the only way forward.